Well, welcome everybody to a very special iConversations live at 100% Optical in the UK. Yes, everybody on YouTube, iConversations has traveled across the pond. Make some noise, UK.
We got a crowd.
So for those of you in the audience who don't know me, my name is Terrence Lacker, and I am the host of the iConversations podcast. We are a podcast that goes beyond the business. We're not so much about how our guests got here, but more so about how they built this and the lessons they learned. These are intimate conversations with very influential people in the luxury eyewear community, and we are just excited to have with us today a good friend of mine, President and CEO of Linda Farrow. Give it up for Mr. Simon Jablon.
Hi.
Yeah, that's him. That's him. So Simon, we have a lot to talk about today. You know, you and I, we've known each other for a very long time. Yeah. So we have a lot to discuss. I'm going to basically go through your history, your present, and do it all in 18 minutes. How about that? A 50-year-old brand in 18 minutes. We'll do it. You know, when I first met you, and I knew of the brand Linda Farrow, of course, I think the biggest aha moment, blew my mind, honestly, was finding out that Linda Farrow was not a made-up name. It was actually the name of a live person. I thought it was kind of like Oliver Peoples, right? Like a really great, you took Linda and Farrow, that worked. But do me a favor, explain to everyone at home and everyone here who Linda Farrow is, and take us back to 1970 and her vision.
Well, Linda Farrow is my mother, first and foremost. So she was the pioneer of luxury fashion eyewear. She changed the game. Previous to that, the eyewear industry was quite tame. It was very optical and engineering focused, and Linda Farrow kind of brought the product of becoming a fashion accessory. By doing that, she re-engineered how people thought about the product category, how the fashion world treated it as a product, how they treated it as their own category within their houses. She was the first to collaborate and work with designers. She worked with Balenciaga, created the collections for Balenciaga, for Yves Saint Laurent, for Emilio Pucci, and some great brands over the years. And she changed the game. In the 1970s, it was a very different outlook on the industry as a whole. So the world has changed rapidly since that time. And since I relaunched the brand in 2003, I've had my own journey of bringing it back to a global audience. But back in 1970, the global footprint for luxury fashion eyewear was a tiny place.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that because you're talking about 56 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So today, Linda Farrow, how much is the brand undeniably your mother's indistinct influence versus your evolution of the brand?
Well, I guess, you know, we lean heavily into my mother's pioneering spirit and the DNA of the brand. So to have a heritage so strong as we do, and the fact that we have, you know, it's a London-based company built in 1970. You can't make that up. So to have such a beautiful history as we do and such a pioneering spirit, part of what we're about is development. So that heritage which we lean into, but how we push forward and how we change the game and how we work with new technology and new ideas, that is where fashion and creativity kind of merge, and the fact that it doesn't stand still. Sometimes it loops back and you reinvent yourself, but you're always pushing for something different. You're always trying to create something to bring joy, you know. And I think in a world full of crazy things that are happening in the political spectrum and everything else, I think when you come into products and come into categories, something you wear, I think if you can create something that brings people joy and happiness and can give them a better feeling about themselves every day and reinvent their look and reinvent their attitude and emotions, then we've done something good for the world, I think.
It's funny you talk about bringing joy. So this is a story that I believe maybe I haven't told you this. So, you know, my mother, you know, we're from New York. And growing up, you know, my mother grew up very poor, but she worked for a very wealthy family, right? And she would go out dancing, you know, in Harlem, you know, on Friday nights. And she would put on her dancing outfit. And there were two frames that she would put on, and she just knew she had it. And that was either her Emmanuel Khan's or her Linda Farrow's. and she put Linda Farrow on, and that was you knew mom was going out dancing. So that was my early recollection of Linda Farrow. But one thing I remember though, I think about, you said, these influences come back around. You talked earlier about the collaborations from from the 70s and 80s that Linda Farrow had, and that is something that you have not lost today. I wrote some of them down. You mentioned Balenciaga, Yves Saint Laurent, Pucci. Let's talk about Dries Van Noten. Let's talk about Oscar de la Renta, and now let's talk about Jacquemus, who you're not finally collaborating now. So, how does Linda Farrow, the brand, choose who to collaborate with? And what are you looking for a fashion collaboration?
Well, collaboration's been a big part of our like relaunch as a brand over 23 years now. I relaunched, pushing the brand, launching the brand. And so the collaboration process really came from my own passion of working in the fashion and creative industry. Like no one was making or working with amazing creative designers to actually make a product that aligns with what they're doing and the catwalks and the fashion at that time. So there was a whole massive, there's a hole in the industry, as it were. So from my side, it was a pure passion project. So when I reached out to certain designers, I didn't even think I had a chance. I was really pushing my luck, to be honest. And so people like Dries Van Noten, if no one knows him, for me, he's an icon of fashion. We've collaborated with brands such as, I can't even think anymore, but like Raf Simons, who's the head designer of Prada right now. So we work with him, and he's like an icon of fashion as well. Oscar de la Renta, who's passed away, we created with him. We work with Ander Müllermeister, we work with Sakai. These are like some of the top fashion labels in the world, like some of the most exclusive fashion lines you can get hold of. So right now we have the license for Jacquemus, which is considered one of the top 10 fashion brands in the world. And it's going very well, so we're happy with that. But the question is, how do we pick and how do we choose? It used to be a lot more emotional. It was like, do I like it? Is it cool? Yeah. And work with a lot of designers, you come up across a lot of personalities, good and bad. And working across that, you're kind of figuring out how you can, it's always trying how you can improve, how you can perfect, how you can deliver. And over the years, it's, relationship is everything. And that's not just with working with designers, that's working with our retail partners, everything from factories and everything else. We have the importance of relationship and being aligned with your designers, with your manufacturers, with your customers is everything. Because you can't do something without that relationship, without working on something. Nothing's ever perfect overnight. You've got to build something, and building something can't be just a one-sided job. You've got to do it together, and collaboration and working on something and sharing a vision and growing something and seeing the evolution of a product, an evolution of a relationship, of everything. That's where it all goes. So if you meet the right people with the right vision and you can share that vision and you can work on that together, that's a collaboration. That's when you can do something.
And I always say that, of course, at the end of the day, we want revenue, right, from a collaboration. But we know where revenue is going to come. If the passion is there, if we're on the same page, then no doubtly the revenue will come. I can imagine sometimes it's not as easy, of course, but we don't look back with regrets. I can imagine the same for you. Now you talked about relaunching the brand, Linda Farrow. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you relaunched the brand, it was about 20 years after the brand had took a hiatus. Yeah, was it about?
Basically, it was the late 80s and I started again in 2003. So probably about 15, 16 years, something.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So how was that? What was going through your mind? You grew up around this iconic woman with this iconic brand. It had took this hiatus. What made you just get up and say, I'm sure it wasn't just get up and say, but what made you say, I want to relaunch this and I want to turn this again into a global iconic fashion and eyewear brand?
There wasn't a plan at all. There was literally, I grew up kind of knowing that my mother was working with big houses and working with some influential designers, but growing up, I didn't really appreciate it. I'm a kid, like whatever your mum does, mum. But as I got older and realized the collections and designers that she was working with, I got more and more curious. And then basically it was my job with my father, because my father was also, he was the business guy behind my mother's brand. We had a warehouse that we just had to clear out, and it was my job to go and do that. So it was kind of, it came around very organically. It was something that had to be done. I opened this warehouse that's basically hasn't been touched in 20 years. Sounds crazy, but you know, my dad was a hoarder at a different level. He locked the door and it was like done. So I went over there and it was opening Pandora's box, treasure trove of creativity. Every box I opened suddenly blew my mind. And like, you know, you've got so many great brands today, like the Gentle Monsters and even like All Caring. And these guys have changed their philosophy of how they design and how they create product, as well as all the, you know, from the Jack Marimars and Satos, all these guys who have been around the last 10 years or so. But go back 23 years. There wasn't a lot around, and the big licensing groups had kind of lost their passion for a product. They were just as much margin and as big as logo as they can put on the product, and that was it, right? And how much you can sell, just stack it up and shift it out. And so I feel like when I was opening up these ideas and creativity, it's like the eyewear industry was lacking a lot of that, and it was just mind-blowing to see all these ideas, and they had to come back to the world. And we started by selling the vintage originally, and I saw very quickly that actually, no, this is not it. I want to create product. I want to push product. I want to do things that just challenge ideas. It wasn't, I was a young guy. I was like 20, 22, 23 years old when I started the company. And so it was all organic, and I didn't really have any boundaries. I wasn't there to, I don't have to make a shareholder or someone like, you know, a board approve it. I don't need to go to anyone. I still don't really, you know, but it started from being totally organic and having an idea that I could just go for it and push boundaries and create things that other people would do. Factories are like looking at me like I was crazy with some of the ideas I was coming with. Like one of the great collaborations was like Jeremy Scott. And I don't know if anyone knows the designer, the guy behind Moschino and things like that. And the crazy glasses that we made. But then we've had, like said, like Jeremy Scott glasses with the Mickey Mouse, like they were in the paparazzi video with Lady Gaga, and then the telephone video with Beyonce wearing them. We've had every celebrity on earth wear these glasses and things like that. And we did it again, all natural, and people respond to creativity. People respond to something that is unique and natural and not too overthought. I think when you overthink things, you take the joy and product, the creativity out of a product.
Yeah, wow. So, see, I always thought that was, I didn't realize the timeline, actually. I always figured that growing up, that was like, you were going to be the successor, you know, for, for Linda Farrow, but there was no plan, you're saying, involved in it. Yeah.
No, other way around in a weird way. It's one of those incestual industries, like you really are kind of dragged into it. But I was always like, I didn't want to go into the eyewear industry. Like I remember literally when I was a baby being pushed around in a pushchair. When I was a baby going around Mido and Silmo, I've done it my whole life. And so even though in being in this industry, it comes to me like secondhand, it comes off so naturally. But at the same time, being young, it was something I didn't want to do. I always wanted to go into like more industrial design and like furniture and interiors and things. That was always my kind of interest. And then I'm here again.
Yeah.
It sucks you back in.
Here you go. It's like a gang. You know? All right. So I don't want to end this without addressing one thing that kind of blew my mind from my years of knowing you. 2024, Linda Farrow launched the Black Collection in 2024. Now, before this, if you ask anyone what Linda Farrow was, they would say it's a super glamorous, super ultra feminine collection that makes the wearer, whether it be male, female, or whoever, feel their feminine side. But then you launched this super masculine collection, the Black Collection. Why?
I guess it's me. And I think with Linda Farrow, I'm always designing in my mother being like a muse and that whole 1970s and the feminine side. And as being the creative director, I've always wanted something that would represent me. And probably about a good 90% of my wardrobe is black. Like it's hard. Yeah. So it's always appealed to me. And so like everyone's like Linda Farrow is like, you know, it's a female collection. It's not a female collection. A good 30% of our business is male, but I understand a lot of male customers. And when people buy the collection, they buy into the bigger, more, usually glamorous, feminine styles that we have. But I wanted something on the Black series that would actually represent me as a designer and me as a consumer. And me as a consumer is about the very technical details. And we've got this whole sterling silver and buffalo horn collection that inside it, which is unique. No one's worked with those two materials put together. And so it's very unique, it's very technical, it's beautifully made, and it's elegant, and it's sophisticated, and it's something like simple, but in the most beautiful way. And that's how I like to buy product. I like details, I like sophistication and understated luxury.
Wow. Yeah, so if you haven't seen, I would definitely recommend that. Definitely check out the Black collection. It's an amazing collection, along with all the collections there. So last sort of question. 56 years this brand's been around. One can say that you collaborated with almost everyone that is a dream list. You've been in some of the most amazing boutiques. You have your own boutiques in the most amazing cities. What's next for Linda Farrow, the brand?
What's next? Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it's the journey, right? Not the destination. And I think for me, I think when I look into the world of technology and things like that, every conversation is AI. Every conversation is about automation and 3D printing and techniques. And I want to go the other way. For me, I feel like the niche industry is getting bigger, but it's getting smaller at the same time. And I want to embrace that, and I want to focus in on relationships. I think relationships everything. AI will do the grunt work. It will do the admin. I don't want people to do admin. I want people to build relationships. And I think we want to bring that community tighter and tighter, and actually like embrace it and love what we do. Like, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't love it, right? Because there's hard times and there's good times. And like during those hard times, you don't mind powering through because you enjoy what you do. You love what you do. The people that you work with, the customers we work with. This is a lifestyle. It's not I'm not building it and selling it and sailing off somewhere. The amount of people who have built and sold, they've been drawn back into it again. So it's a thing that you love this world that we live in, and it's striving for perfection. Not that I ever believe in perfection, because perfection is boredom. There's no such thing, but it's that journey of constantly trying to improve, constantly trying to push the boundaries and things like that. So I want to try and improve the journey, but it's a journey nonetheless.
All right, I got 2 minutes. A little bit of time for the rapid fire questions. All right. First question. What is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
It's going to sound a bit like hippy dippy, but I'm all into this manifestation at the moment. It's my wife. She pushes me on these kind of things. It's sometimes a bit too intense, and I'm a bit too like, I've got a million things to do and I've not no time. And my wife says you've got to stand back and just manifest and focus on the key things. And when you do that, you break down very clearly what's important to you and what you want to achieve and what you love in the world, and appreciation. Appreciation is key.
You're the first person that said that. Everyone has said to me, I check my phone.
No,
so this is very inspiring. And shout out to Alana for that. Okay, next one. What's the biggest lesson that your mom has taught you that you carry into business today?
Well, I think it's when I first launched the business and I started designing the collection. I really wanted to get her in and look at the collection that I designed and critique it. And my mother said, I don't want to critique your collection because it's yours and you've got to design from the heart. And an artist shouldn't critique another artist. You should do what you feel is natural to you. And if you believe in it and you love it and it feels in your gut right, do it. And people respond to that. That's the magic, not somebody else trying to like fix it for you. And so that was the other one. My father was a bit more harsh, and I liked what he said. And he said this, he was very to the point. There's people who do and there's people who don't. What are you? And so you got to be a doer. Like no talk, just do.
Word from wise man and woman. All right, last one. What is one failure that has shaped your life?
Oh, failure that's shaped my life.
Yeah.
I can't think of one thing. I think COVID was probably a major moment, but I mean, I think in business you fail every day, right? Like every single day there's something that hasn't gone your way. There's something that's screwed up. There's something that went wrong. But that's business. I think failure is part of you win or you learn, and failure isn't a part of it. Failure is just part of the course.
Amazing. Well, Simon, you have to come back. You know, maybe in New York or next time I'm in London. We have to. I know there's like we just like
Scratch the surface.
scratch the surface of the Linda Farrow as well as the Simon Jablon story. But we will do part 2 for sure. But thank you for sitting down for us. Thank you 100% Optical for having us and bringing our eye conversations into your home. Look out for us on YouTube, iConversations_media. On Instagram, also iConversations_media. Thank you. And thank you to our audience as well.
Thank you.
Nice job, man.